Shambhavi, you can start.
नमस्कार। एक बार फिर से मैं आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ स्पीक में के अनुभव श्रृंखला में। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं कि हमारा अगला कार्यक्रम और इंटरैक्शन जो है वो भारत की जानी मानी चित्रकार कलाकार श्रीमती अंजलि मेनन जी का है। तो सबसे पहले तो मैम का भी मैं बहुत बहुत स्वागत करती हूँ। और आज आफ्टरनून सेशन के लिए हमारे पास मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में उपस्थित हैं डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टेक्सटाइल्स एंड डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ फैशन टेक्नोलॉजी श्री शांतमनु जी। मैं आपका हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ। मैं हमारी स्पिक मैके की बहुत ही सीनियर वॉलेंटियर श्रीमती रश्मि मलिक मैम से रिक्वेस्ट करती हूँ कि आप हमारे चीफ गेस्ट का स्वागत करें।
थैंक यू शाम्वी। आपने इंट्रोड्यूस तो करा दिया, लेकिन शांत मनु जी के लिए ये बहुत कम है। उनकी ऑफिशियल डेजिग्नेशन इज वेरी स्मॉल कंपेयर्ड टू द काइंड ऑफ ह्यूमन बीइंग ही इज बीन हेल्पिंग स्पीक के फॉर many years now, and he is so forthcoming कि हमें बस उनसे हम उनके पास जाते हैं और वो हमारे निफ्ट में जितने भी कैंपसेस हैं, because he believes in our cause, he believes it is very important to conserve and preserve our cultural heritage. शांत मनु जी, हम आपके बहुत बहुत ग्रेटफुल हैं कि आप हमें हर स्टेटस में, हर कंडीशन में आप हमें मदद करते हैं। आजकल खासकर जब कोविड की वजह से इतने सारे आर्टिस्ट बहुत फाइनेंशियली स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं, एंड यू हैव अगेन कम फॉरवर्ड टू हेल्प दोज आर्टिस्ट थ्रू स्पीक मके। वी आर वेरी वेरी ग्रेटफुल. वी आर ऑल्सो वेरी थैंकफुल टू यू फॉर ऑलवेज supporting our cause, and thank you so much for being amongst us today, and we would like you to say a few words, please.
Yeah, thank you Rashmi ji for these kind words. I hope Anjoli Menon madam is also joined. She is likely to join. First of all, I would like to tell you that my association with Speak Make is quite old. When I was a student in IIT Roorkee and then IIT Kharagpur. So during, of course, as a part of the student committee, we used to receive the artists, the performer, the singer, the dancers, and the instrumentalists. And since I was also involved in I've also learned classical music a little bit. So that's why I'm part of that music committee of the college. And in that capacity, during 80s, I was really excited to attend these Speak Make programs. And then lately, when Rashmi ji met me a few years back, and as you told that I've been doing these two major assignments of Government of India. So in both the assignments, the role of Speak Make is very, very important, because as Development Commission Handicraft, also the primary role is the conservation and preservation of our cultural heritage. So we not only support the artisans, we have more than 27 lakh artisans, handicraft artisans who are registered with my office. So we not only support them in different ways like training and marketing and everything, but at the same time, we're also given the responsibility of ensuring that our rich cultural heritage of so many crafts all over the country is preserved and conserved. And Speak Make has the same role, same goal. So we share the same goal. And secondly, here in NIFT also, we have more than 14,000 students, young minds, aged between 17 to 23, 24. So they should also be knowing about our classical music, our culture. And in fact, you would like to know, it will be love to know that some of these music and other programs has become the part of their curriculum. Now in the revised curriculum of NIFT, even like yoga, as we said, very good session of yoga before this. I'm also a teacher of, myself a teacher of art of living. I also teach Sudarshan Kriya and Pranayam and all. So, and 2 days back, we had yoga day and music day on the same day, 21st of June. It's quite good thing. Good things come together. So for these students, this is very important to attend such programs. I think last year, before the onset of this corona, we had this Parveen Sultana ji, he had come to our campus, and Rashmi ji had brought her. That was a wonderful program. So I just hope that very soon we'll be again have this live sessions with all this. But anyway, but till then we are having these sessions like this online session. and I'm quite glad that I'm also a part of this. I'm associated with this, and particularly young minds, the young students who are right now sitting at home leisurely, along with their parents and guardians also, they're also with them. And they are listening to such stalwart, such legendary figures like Anjolie, Menon. I mean, no, who doesn't know her? She is not only a national figure, she's an international figure, I should say. I mean, her profile and her persona is quite international. And I was reading about her, I got to know that before the age of 15, I mean, her paintings were started selling. I mean, so 15 is such a tender age. I mean, many of our listeners and viewers will be of same age, maybe 18 or I don't know. So that was remarkable contribution. It started so early. And one more thing which I like about her is about her experimentation. Although primarily she does with oil only, but there are so many other medium like glass, acrylic, ceramics, and particularly computers. Because when you are go with the time, since she has done on computers also. So I think the youngsters who are attending this, they will be very much excited to know about that. How does she that on the computers and all? So because all these things make her, I mean, relevant and so much useful and so much attractive and appealing for all generations. I mean, for 3-4 generations have been benefited by her rich knowledge. So we are eagerly looking forward to her talk on this. And again, I would thank Rashmi ji and her entire team of Speak Mackay for inviting me here for this. And I assure you that you know that in government setup we have certain limitations. So within our limitations, whatever we can do for promoting such things, we are very much there. And I assure that our support is very much there, whether online or offline. And next 1.5 hours will be really very, very exciting. Maybe I won't be able to attend throughout the time, but still I will try my best to attend as much as possible. Thank you very much and namaskar.
Thank you so much, Manuji. Actually, I must say one thing. We are also moving with times. That's why we're doing this online conventions. And we are really looking forward to starting our activity with NIFT yet again. Maybe we can do something online again with them soon, you know, because this is how schools and colleges are coming together.
In fact, our new batches will start in May, somewhere in August.
Yes.
That will be the right time. The new entrants will be enriched by this.
We look forward to that, sir. Shambhi, beta, please you give your vote of thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. हमारे लिए भी बहुत सौभाग्य की बात है कि आप ने हमारा जो निमंत्रण है उसे स्वीकारा और आपसे बेहतर चीफ गेस्ट इस सेशन के लिए हमें मिल भी नहीं सकते थे. तो डेफिनेटली ये सेशन जैसा है वैसा ही आपका हमें आशीर्वाद भी मिला. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका. और मैं साथ ही में धन्यवाद कहना चाहूंगी केंद्रीय विद्यालय CISF भिलई को, जो कि हमारे साथ होस्ट इंस्टीट्यूशन के रूप में जुड़ा है. और अब मैं ज्यादा समय ना लेते हुए आगे सेशन को बढ़ाती हूँ. मेरे हमारे स्पीक मैके के बहुत सीनियर वॉलंटियर श्री यशवंत पराशर सर और चेतन शर्मा जी को मैं आगे का सेशन सौंपती हूँ. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी का.
Namaskar. Welcome to the second program of this session of Anubhav 2021. It's a matter of privilege and honor to welcome the very senior and eminent contemporary artist of India, Srimati Anjolie Menon. Srimati Menon has been a supporter of Speak Mackay and has been conducting workshops, delivering talks and presentations in many of our programs. She has taken through her own work. She has done paintings on many objects, and many of the students has been getting inspired by her work in all the programs. We welcome you, ma'am. May I request Chetan Sharma, our volunteer, to now take the program forward.
धन्यवाद यशवंत जी. Namaskar. I, Chetan Sharma, a volunteer from Speak Mackay, welcome you all to today's session, where we have with us a renowned Indian artist of our time. She needs no introduction. but still for the people who hear for the first time, Dr. Anjolie Menon. She was born in Asansol, West Bengal in 1940. She is one of India's iconic contemporary artists. She is well known for her finely wrought oil paintings, her window series, her work with painted objects, computer-enabled imagery, and glass sculptures. After a spell in JJ School of Arts and a degree from Delhi University, she studied at fresco at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris on a French government scholarship. Menon has held 55 solo exhibitions, including retrospectives at the National Gallery of Modern Art, Mumbai, and at the Lalit Kala Academy. Her work hangs in major museums and private collections globally. 3 books and many films have been made on her life and her work. She has done several murals in public spaces, including one in fiberglass in Esplanade Station, Kolkata. The Asian Art Museum San Francisco accessioned her seminal work titled Yatra. After a 6-month solo, the only Indian painter to be thus honored. She was awarded the prestigious Padma Shri by the Indian government and the Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres by the French government, and the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Delhi government in recognition for her contribution towards the Indian art. She has been conferred the degree of Doctor of Letters by the Rabindra Bharati University as well. I now request ma'am to come and take the session forward. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, Speak McKay. I'm very glad to be back with Speak McKay once again, and even gladder that during this lockdown and the COVID, Speak McKay is still so active. I have been associated with Speak McKay for 30 years, I think, and continue to support it because you're doing wonderful work. So I greet all of you who are here and listening to this lecture or talk. And I have to say that Speak McKay has been one of the greatest institutions in this country, worth supporting. All of you are being exposed to classical music and the arts and dance. It's a great opportunity for students, because in this day of electronics and in the day of Bollywood and Hollywood and pop music, there has to be a space for our culture. And this is being brought to you to your great numbers by Speak McKay year after year. I would like to, at this point, also mention my sadness at the demise of Rajan Mishra, I'm so sorry, whom we have, because of Speak McKay, I have heard Rajan and Sajan many times and rejoiced in their wonderful music. So I would like to express my condolences to the family and to all of us at Speak McKay in the loss of this wonderful artist. What I'd like to show you now is a huge mural. I have been doing many murals all over, including Bombay Airport, Delhi Airport, Esplanade Station, many hotels, the Ministry of External Affairs banquet hall, the old Buddha mural which I did. In Ahmedabad. It's the biggest mural I've ever done. It was 26 feet high, 22 feet high and 26 feet wide. So even at my old age, I was climbing up the ladders and scaffoldings, trying to complete this huge work. So I will just show you now a video of this work, so you can have a look, and then I will explain to you some of the elements in. Now this video really consists of, we'll look at it once again. Then I'll explain. First, I'll explain to you what the elements are. First and foremost, I found some old pieces in Ahmedabad, which is very famous for its old carved wood and its carved houses. So I found some pieces from a ceiling in Ahmedabad. And so you're seeing the mural through bits and pieces of this old ceiling, which is just a fun thing, really, but it worked out quite well, I have to say. Now, the mural out find these apsaras flying with garlands and plates of fruit and vegetables. It's about fecundity, it's about wholeness, about growth, and about plenty, And at the bottom of the mural, there's a huge oval table at which people are seated and eating a feast. And this feast consists of fruits and vegetables and cooked food and various platters and jugs full of lassi and milk. And the people who are seated around are from all over India. There's a Pandit sitting at one end, there's a Maulvi sitting at the other end. In between, there's a Sikh family, there are women and children. And so there are 12 or 13 or 14 people sitting around this table and partaking of food. Right at the end, there's a woman with a big basket of fruits and vegetables on her head, because these are the farmers, the provider of food for all of us in India. So can we have a look at the mural again, please? There you see the Pandit. Food at the table. There are flying in the sky. There's the woman in the end with the basket of fruit and vegetables. It's quite difficult doing this mural because my studio, which is in the Nizamuddin Basti, the walls are only 9 feet high and the mural is 22 feet. So I had to roll the canvas and do the top half first and then do the bottom half. And then the 4 pieces of canvas were taken to Ahmedabad and put together to form the big mural. So it's the biggest work that I've ever done, and I just wanted to share it with all of you. And now I'm going to, during this COVID time, we've all been locked down and haven't been able to leave the house. My studio is in the Nizamuddin Basti. And you know what these bastis are in the middle of Delhi? There are villages, old villages, that suddenly got surrounded by the city. But they were kept within what is called the Lal Dora, or red ribbon, which is an invisible string that goes around these villages. And within the village, the rules and norms and the life that goes on remains the same as it always was in the old villages. It does not follow the rules of the city. So I'm very lucky to have a studio there because life goes on outside the window. And many of the new paintings that I have done, which you'll see, which are for the new exhibition that I'm having in New York in August. I don't know whether I'll be able to reach New York in August because America seems to be keeping the Indians out, which is very sad. But the exhibition in New York in August has about 18 paintings, and I'm going to show you them one by one. Many of the paintings are inspired by my life in the Basti. Life goes on there, and you have the goat herds, and you have the people sitting on katyas, and various children and women and men who provide the models for my portraits. So I will take you through these. There are one or two paintings from my old style where I was very influenced early on by early Christian art, and when I was in Paris. So there are some visions of Jesus, some visions of Mother Mary and the Child. I have had a theme going through with my last exhibition, which was the Divine Mothers. So not only the great, the gods who are children, like Krishna, like Jesus, like baby Buddha, Gautam, in fact, the baby Ganesh as well. And their mothers were also shown, Yashoda and Mary and Parvati. So some of those paintings are there as well. There's one or two nudes, I think. So we'll go through them at one at a time, and I'll maybe say a few words. Can we start showing the pictures, please? They should appear on my screen as well. Otherwise, how can I speak?
Yes,
about
I think it's appearing on the screen. Right, ma'am? Is it
Put
visible?
on the first one.
Is it visible to you?
Okay. That's a portrait of a little boy in the basti. The next one, please. Next one, please. I often love to use blue because this is my favorite color, Prussian blue, and this occurs in many of my paintings. And I also have invented that little design on the checkerboard, which you see on her garment. And I find that many, many artists are now copying that. So one of the things that you have to do when your work becomes well known is to put up with the fact that a lot of artists are going to copy you. Next one, please. Oh, that is definitely a scene from my basti. You find an old haveli in the background and a goat sitting there, and a young man in the foreground. And we're looking at this through these red windows. If you see in the left-hand corner, there's a goat. And this is a theme that occurs many times in this particular exhibition, because these goat herds who live in the basti and bring their goats unfortunately, they bring them to the park and they eat up all the leaves. But if I leave my doors open in the studio, the goats, quite often, they'll wander in and start eating up all the drawings because they love eating paper. So I have to keep them out. But I have painted, even in the big mural that I've done in the Bombay airport, there is a scene with the goat herds and the goats. Next one. And there you are, there's the goat herd, and he's holding a baby goat, and there's a goat in the foreground as well. Young man, dressed in traditional clothes, and he's often there in the park. When I talk to him, you can see that the goat is tied with a string and a red collar around his neck. So he is like a pet goat. Next one. And there's the girl with the goat. So this is a pair of paintings, which is like a diptych. The young man with the goat and the woman, a young woman with her goats. Next one, please. As you walk through this little by-lanes of the basti, you will find lots of interesting things going on behind closed windows. And you peep through one of these windows and you see that life is going on behind the window, and it's mysterious. You wonder who's living there, who are all the people living there. And this is a glimpse I got through one of the open windows of a little boy, And he's got his goat as well, as you see. This is all part of that same series of the goat people. Next. This is, I had gone to the Mela. I had done a whole series, and this is one of the paintings left over from that Mela. The thing was that there were all kinds of sadhus in all kinds of costumes and dresses and beads and ash, and this is kind of an amalgamation of all those sadhus that one saw. In this one, there was also a sect. It was a fascinating experience because there were all these various akharas and sadhu sitting in them. And I was blessed by one naked sadhu who was covered in ash, and then of young monks which had tattooed Ram all over their bodies. These were the Ram Bhakts, and the entire body was covered with tattoos. And this one, he has a tattoo on his cheek which is written Ram. Next, please. Next one. There you have, again, looking through an old window, and inside is a man reading the newspaper. He is a resident of the Basti, and in those small little houses and holis, they lead a full life. He probably has a large family. They all live there together, but he likes his morning cup of tea, which is seen on the windowsill, and he likes that little solitude, and probably told his family and all the grandchildren to keep away while he reads his newspaper in comfort early in the morning. The building's name is Rafia Manzil, and there are many such buildings throughout the Basti as we walk towards the Dargah. Next, please. That's a nude that I painted. Throughout our education, school, and in Paris, we had to learn anatomy through this. If you don't know the anatomy, the bare bones, you don't understand the human figure. So particularly if you're going to be a figurative artist, I have painted a series of nudes in my life. There aren't many. There are, I think, only two in this exhibition, but this is one of them. And again, you see the checkerboard design in the background, which kind of embellishes the painting in some way. Next, please. There you have a mother and child. Yes, inspired by Mary and Jesus, but not necessarily. It could be any divine mother and her child. I think the little boy is probably a little older. He's not a baby anymore. But this is a mother and child, one of many that I have painted in the exhibition. Next, please. That's another girl who, no, I think this is not a girl from the Basti. This is inspired by one of my grandchildren, Madhuri. And I love the use of blue or green as an undercoating to many of the portraits, because that was the method that was followed during the Renaissance. They always painted a portrait with pale green and then overpainted it with pink or burnt sienna, because that glow that came on those medieval or those Renaissance paintings came from that undercoating of green or blue. Next, please. There again, one of my Basti boys with his goat. Next, please. another young man from the Basti. They come in and sit on the steps of my studio, and I can sketch them, paint them. They're very accommodating. I have slashes across his face because there is something as paintings being, I mean, that is the modern view of paintings being too beautiful or too perfect. And this is deconstruction. I often did that with my chair paintings, with my window paintings, to deconstruct in some way, to make it different from the reality. And here he has some red slashes across his face to demystify the painting. Next. Oh, we're back to the beginning. So I think that's about all there is in this particular series. There are some more paintings, but the images were already sent to New York for the show. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about this show because I don't see that the Americans are going to let us in before August. So maybe I won't be able to go, but the show is going to go on whether I go or not. Now I can take some questions from you, and that's really all that I have to say for today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I would definitely want to say this, that all the paintings that I have seen, all the work that we all have seen are so beautiful, but it became even more beautiful when we came to know the sense, the deeper sense of it. And we heard you explaining all those paintings. So thank you for this. And we all have many questions. So, but I would like to begin with one of the most basic and simple questions, like, what were really the experiences, what were the events majorly in your life that made you take this as a profession? What made you take to become an artist?
Well, my father, who was a doctor, a very brilliant surgeon, he wanted me to become a doctor. My mother wanted me to go to Oxford and become a writer. And I was in school, in the Lawrence School, Lovedale, which was my boarding school where I was at. And it was a military school, so life was very rough in that school. But there was an art department, which was like a haven, where I used to go when things got a little too rough. And we were teased, we were bullied, we had to march up and down. So I used to go to the art room, and there was a wonderful teacher called Sushil Mukherjee, who was our guru. And by the time I was 12 years old, he allowed me to paint in oils and gave me canvases. And the art school had about 4 or 5 wonderful books about Van Gogh, the Renaissance, and there weren't many books on Indian art in those days. I think there was one book on Jamini Roy. But we would pour through these books and through them have some vision of what world art was about. Just those 4 or 5 books. And Sushil Mukherjee encouraged me and a few other chosen artists to paint in oils. And one year, Dr. Zakir Hussain, who is the president in those days, he came and there was an exhibition of our work. And he actually bought my first work. It was a boat, it's a painting about boats. And he paid the royal sum of 100 rupees, which was a lot of money. We used to only get 1 rupee a week pocket money in those days. So 100 rupees was a lot of money.
Yeah, man.
And I bought gifts for my parents with that money. I didn't choose any of it for myself. And later on, I won the President's Medal in school. And Sushil Mukherjee continued to be my mentor. And so I decided to become an artist rather than become a doctor or go to Oxford. And it was very much his inspiration. And the fact that he gave me any amount of paint and canvas, and I used to paint prolifically, even in school. So there were many paintings created. I was very influenced by Van Gogh in those days. So I did pick swatches of paint, unlike what I'm doing now, which is a very smooth surface. So that's how I decided to become an artist, and I went to JJ School of Art to begin with. And within a few months, the principal decided that I should go straight into here. Then my friends got transferred to Delhi, and we left Bombay, and I did a course in English literature instead, which pleased my parents. And eventually I got a wonderful scholarship to go to France, where I studied fresco at the École de Beaux-Arts. And because I studied fresco, I have done many, many murals all over India, and that has become sort of my speciality. Any other questions?
Yeah, great. Ma'am, since you mentioned oil, I would like to know more about the mediums that you worked in. You like from computer graphics to Murano glass and all. You've tried different variety of mediums. So, is there any favorite medium to work in that you like to work more on?
See, I was very influenced while I was in Paris with the very early Christian art, and that's also done on wooden surfaces. And it has a certain translucence where you have a patina, which is texture and a feeling of age. So I've incorporated that, and I've really created my own style where I have thin layers of paint, which the first layer has to dry, and then that takes some time, so it takes me a long time to finish one painting.
Yes.
And then the second layer comes on, and there's some technique of rubbing and scraping as well to give you surfaces different textures. So this technique of mine I have really invented myself, and it's very different from the way people apply oil paint in thick slavers, impasto as they call it. I don't do that anymore. I did when I was much, much younger. But now I have chosen this particular medium to give a sort of a translucent glow, which the paintings achieve to do. They try to aspire to have that glow of ancient portraiture. I was also inspired by some of the portraits, my old glass photographs, which I found in the Colongod Palace. My husband comes from Colongod, a small villa. And in the palace there, I found these old daguerreotypes, wonderful glass paintings, glass photographs. And I was much inspired by those as well. The thing is about changing mediums is that I've been painting now for 61 years. That's a long time. So you get bored with doing the same thing. And so throughout my career, I've had a series of experiments, different experiments. And each time I've had this experiment, people have been skeptical in the beginning and then embraced the result, surprisingly, with great enthusiasm. For instance, I did these series of finding old windows in the Lakkad Bazaar, and then taking out the window panes and painting paintings instead of those window panes. And people in the beginning said, "Oh, what's all this about? Or these old windows?" And then there was, for 10 years, that whole series lasted, and people, it was much, much sought after. People wanted to buy them and acquire them. And then when I did computer-aided work, that caused some skepticism in India at that time. But now all the young artists are using Photoshop and the computers. But in those days, I was the first one in the late 90s, and I had this show in New York of the computer-aided work.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, since 60 years you've been practicing it. Yeah, so you must have touched everything, every aspect of it. So any surface that you are left out with in which you haven't tried, mediums apart,
Not
any
really.
surface in? Yeah.
I don't like acrylic. Everyone's painting in acrylic
Okay.
these days, but I prefer the old traditional medium of oil. But I like it. Unlike most artists who paint on canvas, I like to paint on a hard surface. So if I could get wood of that
Right.
size, I'd paint on wood. But since you can't, I paint on masonite, which is a kind of synthetic wood. And so all the paintings are done on hard surfaces because it's easier to rub on a hard surface. So often I'll put on a layer of paint and then rub it with a cloth or sponge to give it a texture.
Right. Okay, ma'am. At the age of 18, like you had a solo exhibition. I mean, what was the experience that of that? I mean, what made you take that initiative, and how was
Well,
it like back then?
I had accumulated a lot of paintings, about 40 or 50. I used to paint prolifically on any surface I could find, on doors and windows and boards and paper. And I've even painted on the back of old shoe boxes when I couldn't find anything else to paint on. Especially when I went to America and stayed with the ambassador and his wife. And I did a series of Harlem paintings there. And I couldn't find canvas, so I just put on the back of some old shoe boxes that I found lying in the house. So I painted on all kinds of surfaces over the years. But I come back to painting oil on masonite, which is my favorite, most favorite medium.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, and about that exhibition that you had way early in your life when you were only 18.
Uh, you know what happened? I had accumulated a lot of paintings, and then I met Hussain Saab. Huh? And he came and he saw the paintings and said, "Oh, you must have an exhibition of this." So my father was living in Lodi estate in those days, and we had a big garden. So Hussain Saab came personally with bamboos, and he put up some stands in the garden, and he showed the 53 paintings. And the whole he designed the card, the invitation card, which I still have a copy of. I don't want to have it here, unfortunately. And then the exhibition was such a success that he decided that he was going to take 20 paintings from that exhibition and take them to Bombay and show it there. Not all 53, because a lot of them had got sold by then. Was I 18? I wasn't even 18, I think I was 17. And there was something called the deluxe train in those days, where you had a chair car to go to Bombay. So my father had some friends in Bombay, and I was going to go alone in the chair car. The paintings were sent on earlier. And Hussain came to the station to see me off, and I said, so he just hopped on the train and he bought himself a ticket on the way. Halfway through the journey, he said, "Oh my God, I've left the car keys on the table and my car is parked in the railway station." He was such a wonderful friend. So I was dropped off at this senior naval admiral's house where I was staying. Next day, Hussain came in the morning to collect me in his car. He had a painted Fiat, which he had painted the whole thing with a painting, and he was always barefoot. And the guard at the gate said, "कहाँ जा रहे हो?" So he said, "मैं अंजलि बेबी को लेने आया हूँ, मैं driver हूँ." So I got in the car, and he put up a wonderful exhibition of mine at the Bullabhai Institute. And many people in Bombay then bought my work, saw my work, and having these two exhibitions certainly helped me to get the French scholarship.
Great, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Most of your years of your life have been in the studio. I believe you've been painting all your years. So, would you like to describe a little bit about what an average day it is like in your studio? What a typical day it is in your studio?
Oh, most recent, I'm married to a naval officer, and we changed 30 houses in his
Wow.
career, during his
My God.
career. So we were here, we were in Vladivostok, we were in London, we were in Portsmouth, we were traveling all the time. So for at least 40 years out of the 60, I never had a studio. I would paint in the balcony or paint in the corner of one
Okay.
room. I learned from Hussein how to just carry a bag of paint and sit on the floor and paint. I didn't need equipment, I didn't need an easel. I just leaned the painting against the wall and I would paint. But then, about 20 years ago, my husband retired and we settled down in Delhi. And that's when I was walking around that basti because there's a lot happening there. And I saw a building coming up. And so I managed to buy one room in that building, quite a big room. And I asked the builder to put a glass front so there's very good light. And there I've been now for 20 years. I love it there. Once I was painting a joint painting with Mr. Chidambaram, and he came and he said, "But why don't you get a better place?" And I said, "But I love it in the Basti. I know it's a bit like a jhuggi over there, but life goes on, and I'm very happy to be painting in the Basti."
Yes, ma'am. And if I may also ask, like, what is it not when you're, what is it like when you're not in the studio?
Well, I have a big family. My son and daughter live with me, and there are two grandchildren. And there's a lot of traffic in my house because the children have their friends. My son and daughter-in-law have their friends, and we have our friends. So we have been very social people, always having more than one person at the dining table, sometimes 8 or 10. And I love to cook. And I love
Wow.
to feed people. So I do a lot of cooking. I'm in the middle of writing a cookery book or a cookery journal of my travels all over the world and the recipes that I make. I have yet to find a publisher. I haven't really looked very hard. So the lockdown has been very hard for us because we are so used to having friends around, lots of friends, the whole artist community, who many of unfortunately, we've lost many of our friends this year
Yes.
to COVID. But I suppose we have to be philosophical about that and hope that next year will be better. This year has been pretty bad, being locked down. In fact, I didn't work in my studio for a long time this year because of the COVID. My husband and I both had the COVID. We were sick with the COVID, but we didn't go to hospital anymore. And I've been working in a small corner of the house, which is difficult when you're doing large paintings. It's okay to do the small paintings sitting in a corner, but you need more space for the bigger paintings.
Right, ma'am. Any dish that you would like to mention, ma'am, which you have mastered or you're loving the most, which you have cooked?
Oh, I cook food from all over the world. I cook stroganoff from our days, and we were many days, 2 years we spent in Russia. And then I cooked Burmese food because an uncle of ours came from Burma. And then I cooked, my grandmother was American. I had an American grandmother. She came from Boston. And she married my grandfather, who's the first Indian at MIT. So there was a lot of Bostonian dishes that I do, chowders and bakes and brownies. So there's food from all over the world. My aunt married a Frenchman,
Wow.
so there's a lot of French food as well. And my father was Bengali, so I have a big Bengali repertoire of Bengali food, and I think that prawn malai curry is the greatest dish in the world. My husband comes from Kerala, so now I'm cooking a lot of Kerala food as well.
Wow, ma'am. I am
So
sure
it's from all over.
those dish, yeah, and I'm also sure that those dishes would have been very aesthetic as your paintings are. And so,
Well, I
ma'am,
try.
yeah,
I try to make it look good.
great, ma'am.
Yes.
I would like to Ma'am, I would like to know, like, in an artist life, it happens that they get an artist block, they get an stagnancy, or did it ever
Yes,
happen to you?
yes. It has happened, and it was the saddest time of my life. We were posted in Germany, and for some reason, I had an artist block. I just couldn't paint. I tried and tried. We had a Mercedes, we had a grand house, we had a cook, which we had taken from India. We were in luxury, but I just couldn't paint. So finally, I asked my husband, I said, just buy me a ticket to go home. I came home on a flight. I touched the earth, apna bhumi, no? And I went to a friend's house in the middle of the night, and I started to paint, and I painted 20 paintings. So it was just being removed from my country that made me so unhappy. And I don't know, I just couldn't paint. That was a bad whole year that I didn't paint.
Right, ma'am. Also, in one of those paintings that you showed us, ma'am, I saw that there's a nude woman depicted in your artwork. So, ma'am, coming from an Indian background, I would like to know, being a woman, what was it like depicting nude women in your artworks? And did you receive some sort of criticism or backlash or anything of that sort, if
This
any?
backlash is only 2 or 3 years old. This is all nonsense. Everyone painted nudes. Sousa painted nude. Hussein painted nudes. I painted many nudes. And full nudes, full frontal nudes. And nobody said a thing. And now, this is all part of this new Hindutva, which has nothing to do with aesthetics. It has nothing to do with this aesthetics, which is sad because in the New York painting, there are two more nudes which are already gone to New York. And they are very readily accepted by people who know art. Throughout the ages, artists have painted the nude. And it's very much part of the whole trajectory of where art went. So it's ridiculous that now there's some new kind of so-called morality which is preventing artists from painting the nude. There's no I have not had any backlash. No.
Great, ma'am. So, ma'am, would you consider yourself as a feminist?
No, not really. I'll tell you why. I do believe that we have to give better rights to the uneducated women in this country. But I think for an educated woman from a reasonable background, there's no place which is as luxurious as India because we still have health. If you are in America, you have to, in between painting, you have to worry about doing the dishes. And over here, we are very well off. I have had all the breaks right from the beginning. I have not suffered. People have already suffered from having, people have already all through the years suffered from being asked, have you had a problem being a woman painter? And my only funny rejoinder to that is, yes, I need a wife. Huh? So I think that's what most of my male counterparts have: a loving wife who cleans the brushes, who cleans the studio, who brings them cups of tea. I have no such luxury. I have to have, in fact, I have a husband whom I have to look after.
Right. Ma'am, what lies next for you, ma'am? You've been painting all these years. You've made a name for yourself. What lies next in your life and in the work of our field that you are working in right now? Any projects or exhibitions?
I try and get over one hurdle at a time. First, I worked on the Ahmedabad painting for 6 months. And when that was over, I've been working on the New York show. Now, when the New York show is over, I don't know whether I need a break, whether I need to rest a bit. I'm 81 years old, so it's getting harder. Physically, it's getting harder. Instead of painting for 5 hours a day, I'm painting for around 3 hours a day already. So I hope that my health keeps up, and that I am able to go on painting. Thank God, artists never retire. So
Yes,
that's a boon.
absolutely true.
Yeah, yeah. And I look at my friend Krishan Khanna, who's now 94, and he's painting with such vigor. He also did a large mural for the same Ahmedabad corporate house. And I watched him paint one of the big panels. 94 years old, and he's painting with such strength and vigor that I admire him tremendously. The painter Raza, right to the end, he was painting. Hussein painted to the last day of his life in his hotel room. So these are all inspirations for me to continue to paint.
Right, ma'am.
Thank
Ma'am,
you.
Ma'am, you attended the École Nationale des Beaux-Arts exhibition in 1959 in Paris. What was life like in Paris back then, ma'am?
Paris was difficult at first because I went there not really speaking much French. And the French are quite mean to people who don't speak their language. So for the first few months, I was very unhappy, very homesick. But eventually, my professor, the Professor Ojam, who used to teach fresco, he gave me the premium mention, which is the first mention, that is that you come first in the class. And he didn't let us, it's very hard work to do a fresco. You have to carry buckets of wet plaster in a freezing cold atelier. But he didn't let me get any help from any of the boys to carry these buckets. So I had to do that all on my own. But it was much appreciated by the professor. And so France was, in the end, France was wonderful. We had a lot of friends. I shared a studio for some time with a now famous artist, Toledo from Mexico. And we looked alike, and we were born on the same day. So everyone thought he was my brother. But unfortunately, he also passed away this year at the age of 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to request if you would like to say some words to budding artists and people who are watching from Speak McKay. Any suggestions for the upcoming artists?
Well, my main advice to young artists is that you must paint because you're driven to paint, not because you think it's a good career. A lot of artists started to, when art prices started to soar and went up, a lot of young people joined art because they thought they were going to make a lot of money. And I don't want them to think about the money while they're painting. I want them to be karma yogis. That is, you paint for the sake of painting. You don't think of the results while you're working. I think that's very, very important. And they have to be patient. It isn't that you get sudden fame.
Right,
it was slightly different in my time. There were only around 200 artists in India, practicing artists in India when I was 17. But today there are lakhs, 6, 7, 8 lakhs of artists trying to make a living. So only the very best, only the very talented, only the very gifted really make it to the top. And it's a hard struggle. So I would not, lots of people bring their school children to me to show me their work. And I say, this is not an easy path. Don't just encounter it because you can't find anything else to do. If they can't get into college, then chalo art school ko chalo. So that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea.
Correct, ma'am. Very nicely explained, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been really an honor and privilege to speak to you, understand your work, your life journey and everything. I consider it as my greatest blessing that I am here talking to you. And
okay, tell me, it's time for me to ask you a question. What do you do in Speak McKay? Where are you studying and what do you do?
Okay, ma'am. So thank you for asking this. I basically come from Guwahati, Northeast, a beautiful place in Northeast India. And I basically have done my fashion designing studies and all. But to be very honest, ma'am, I always was fascinated by art and drawing, to be basically, if I have to explain. So, but yes, all the challenges that you mentioned early in your talk, it's the same for me. Like I was in two minds whether to take it as a commercially thing or I should just help just go with the passion that I have for this art form and all. So yeah, somewhere in the middle I'm lying. I'm trying. I do try to infuse all my paintings and artworks in my work, which is basically visual merchandising.
Okay.
Yeah, so I try to infuse that sometimes. And with Speakmaker, if I have to say, it's been I've been helping and I'm volunteering with all the team members for the posters, designs, and all these things. And
very nice.
Exactly.
Wonderful. I like your outfit. Huh?
Thank you so much, ma'am. This is basically a Rajasthani proper attire, and I originally belong from Rajasthan, so that's been very close to me. Yeah, ma'am.
Nice meeting you, beta.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
ma'am. Thank you so much.
It was a wonderful presentation. We learned about the art, the paintings of Anjolie ji, as well as we got to look into the personality a bit. We thank you, Srimati Anjolie Menon ji. I would also like to thank Srimati Vimmi Indra, who facilitated the program and helped us with the content. I would like to mention Chetan Sharma, Nilesh Vyas, Shambhavi Shukla, among other volunteers of Speakmaker. I would also like to thank the audience, everybody who watched this program. Thank you very much.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all our supporters, the Department of Youth Affairs, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Textiles, the SRF Foundation, the Takshila Foundation, Ashok Leyland, Dr. Vikram Seth and Kusum Gas, and all others. Thank you so much. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच चेतन। मैं इसी के साथ आप सभी को बताना चाहूंगी कि आज शाम को हम सभी फिर से मिलेंगे इवनिंग प्रोग्राम में, जो कि जिसकी शुरुआत होगी पंडित विश्वमोहन भट्ट से और उसके पश्चात विदुषी सुजाता मोहपात्रा जी का ओडिसी नृत्य होगा। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी का। एक बार फिर से नमस्कार।
अच्छा, चले गए मिस्टर डीजी? हाँ, डीजी चले।